Ready.
I'm going to call to order the special meeting of the Finance Committee. Welcome everybody here. I'm glad to see we have a very good crowd. Today is the kickoff meeting for the 2019-2020 budget. This is an informational meeting. This is the first official presentation of the budget, and we'll have a kind of a 30,000-foot talk about it, major items, this, that, and other. And before we adjourn, I would like Mr. Rao to go over the rest of the meetings next week and the week after, whatever. We'll do that as well. Having said that, Ms. Tony, I'm going to recognize you unless you want, Mr. Garrity, you want to say a few words?
Take one thing, just a couple things real quick. Good evening, Chairman Clark, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and members of the entire City Council. Good evening. I've been working on budgets for 28 years. I shouldn't say that loud, but 28 years with the City of Winston-Salem. My first budget as a budget analyst was in 1991. I just wanted to take a moment to thank our budget staff this year. They've done a really, really incredible job making it easy for me. And under the leadership of Ms. Tony and her staff, they have managed to recommend a budget that does the three things that I always want to see in a budget that I recommend to each of you. Maintain our commitment to our employees, maintain our quality services, and try to restrain from fees and tax increases. And they've done that. I'm real proud of them today, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Tony to walk us through it. And as I've always say every year, this is the beginning. This is just a recommendation. It becomes this council's budget going forward.
Mr. Chairman, did I hear you say you were going to have the roll call? Did we call the roll and I missed it?
Not a roll call, just a...
We don't have to have a...
No. Okay. Ms. Tony, you have the floor. Do what
Thank you.
You'd like to do.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, Chairman Clark, and members of the council.
Good afternoon.
Before we get started, we have a Citizen Budget Advisory Council, and they've been meeting over the course of many months. Their charge this year was to embed the strategic plan into the budget process. And so they have some recommendations. I want to recognize the council. The chairperson is Jesse Ide, who's going to review the recommendations. Oh, you all stand. The whole committee. Okay. Nathan Bourne and Ms. Hazetta Schuler. And they are faithful members. They show up every month. We have a really good team. Some of the others couldn't be here today, but Jesse's going to give the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Thank all of y'all for serving.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I would also like to start off by echoing Mr. Garrity's comments about the budget staff. They've been tremendously helpful to us all year in preparing these recommendations and holding meetings for us, so we'd like to thank them. For the fiscal year of 2018-19, the Citizens Budget Advisory Council was given the charge of connecting the puzzle pieces, embedding the strategic plan into the budget process. Since October of 2018, CBAC spent each month reviewing various aspects of the strategic planning process in local government, including a scholarly perspective, peer North Carolina city reviews, the budget process, and opportunities for citizen engagement. CBAC also spent a good amount of time reviewing the City of Winston strategic planning process. During our review, we enjoyed exercises that encourage city leaders to think in terms of strategic focus areas and objectives that are aligned with the budget. This helps organize thought and enable effective communication to citizens. The exercise that we did in our March meeting on embedding the strategic plan into the budget process was quite effective and drives engagement in the process and hopefully collaboration in reaching decisions. The goal of strategic planning should not be to create goals for easy wins in order to check off a box, but rather meaningful, citizen-driven goals that have real long-term outcomes for our community. CBAC believes the City of Winston-Salem is off to a good start with their strategic plan, and we would like to offer a few recommendations for the next phase of aligning the strategic plan with our budget process. The Mayor and City Council should, 1, start each budget cycle reviewing data from citizens through the Citizen Survey and other public forums. In the 2018 resident survey, the lowest rated categories were streets and sidewalks, public transit, and community services. This is where budget conversations should begin and determine if existing resources are already budgeted to address these issues or create a plan to add them to the upcoming or future budget. Number 2, prioritize only the top 3 to 5 major community needs and align them with the current or new strategic objectives in the strategic plan. Number 3, commit resources to fund high priority goals and objectives. In reviewing the Council Strategic Planning Workshop held in the spring of 2019, there were 16 citywide priority rankings. CBAC also participated in ranking the priorities with outcomes closely aligned with that of the City Council's list. However, CBAC would recommend reducing the ranking to only the top 5 in order to realistically address and fund the top priorities within a shorter time frame. Number 4, based on a presentation by a peer city strategic planning office, CBAC recommends adding a citizen engagement component to the strategic planning process. The peer city offered a large community meeting in a central location of the city where citizens were able to provide input to the strategic plan and help set priorities for the city in the upcoming fiscal year. This event type of community event is recommended by CBAC. In addition, peer cities have small handouts that show the city's strategic objectives in a simple, easy-to-understand manner on one front and back pamphlet. Number 5, design better storytelling to drive engagement. The city should be able to tell its story and show progress on the strategic plan and completed goals. The use of technology via the city's website is one method for data collection and sharing strategic performance. Operational dashboards and open data will allow the city to tell its story in an easy-to-understand format with charts and graphs, and where citizens can track the progress and budgeted action items of the strategic plan. This should help facilitate a more digestible format to report budget alignment, progress against goals, and ultimately results, which will give more leverage to affect last year's CBAC goal of improving community awareness and engagement. Lastly, number 6, present useful tax information to help citizens better understand how the city's strategic plans translate into dollars and generate monthly work list summary to ensure accountability. This holistic approach to combining the city's strategic plan with citizens' priority needs, along with the mayor and city council's goals, the annual budget process, performance measures, and city accomplishments, will achieve the goal of increased transparency and making information accessible and digestible to residents in our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Burke?
Before you leave, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say you and your committee, that's a very good report.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, and I know it will help the citizens in some of the recommendations that you've given.
That is our hope.
And I heard Ms. Tony say you all volunteer so many hours.
Yes, as a volunteer council.
Oh, yes, I know. And but what I would like for Ms. Tony to do is to get your hours, because we do have a big occasion that we recognize our volunteers, and when we have citizens who give us their time, their abilities, it makes a tremendous difference in our city. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we'll transition into our proposed budget for fiscal year beginning July 1st through June 30th of 2020. The proposed fiscal year FY19 through 20 budget for all funds is $496.4 million. This includes $368.4 million for operations, $46 million for the debt service, and $82 million for capital. When we look at budget to budget, the total decrease in the overall budget is 6.3%. That's mainly due to a reduction in our enterprise capital projects. For operations, there's just a slight increase of only 1.5% in operations. When we look at our property tax base growth, it's been a steady growth over the last several fiscal years. Our current year of 19 should come in around 2.1%, and we're also projecting a 2.1% growth for our fiscal year 2020. The property tax base is broken down into real property, which is land and buildings, personal property, registered motor vehicles, and public service companies. And the public service companies are valued based on the North Carolina Department of Revenue determines their value, and so that's why that one is separated out.
Is that like Duke Energy?
Yes, so
telephone poles?
Duke Energy, Norfolk Southern Railroad, Piedmont Natural Gas falls in that category.
thank you.
Yes. So when you look at the whole budget for all funds, once again, it's $496.4 million. On the left-hand side, you'll see our total net expenditures by service area. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see our total revenues by type. On the expenditure side, our major driver is environmental health area at 39.3%. In that category includes water and sewer, solid waste, stormwater management, and our sanitation division. So that is our major expenditure, followed by public safety, which includes police, fire, and emergency management departments. For revenue for total funds, charges for services is our major source of revenue, and that's because we have our water and sewer system in that, followed by property taxes at 29.4%. So our major highlights for the FY20 budget, we balanced the operation budget without any increase to the tax rate, the property tax rate. We plan to have the same level of service as the current year. In November of 2018, voters approved a $122 million bonds, and so there will be a 4-cent tax increase for the voter-approved bonds. That will increase the tax rate to 63.74 cents per $100 of assessed value. Under employee compensation, there will be a full-year impact of the market pay study. We implemented the pay study in April of 2019, and so that was the end of this current fiscal year, and so we'll have a full-year impact. Over the last 2 years of the market study, all employees received some sort of adjustment to market, and if they were at market, they received a 2% increase. So we will have a full-year impact of that. We have our 5th round of public safety 2% supplemental pay budgeted that will be effective on January 1st of 2020. And this is for retention efforts and to bring public safety personnel up to market. There will be no increase in merit for general employees and public safety employees. And we have also budgeted increased costs for employee retirement benefits. That was over a 3.4% increase in costs of $1.7 million. And that includes our North Carolina Local Government Retirement Benefits, LEO, which is the Law Enforcement Officers Retirement Plan, and Whispers, which is also for a police retirement plan. We also have budgeted to increase the minimum wage to $13 per hour. Currently, our minimum wage for the current year was increased to $12.50 per hour, and so for the FY20 budget, we'll increase it to $13 an hour. That's going to affect about 30 employees, mainly custodial type of positions. For user fees, there is no increase to our landfill tipping fees. There's a water and sewer residential base charge increase by $1.02 per month, and that was approved by the Utilities Commission. And then there's a small increase to the yard cart fee of $5, so to go from $60 to $65. And that rate will still keep us lower than many of our benchmark cities when we compare the yard cart fee. One strategy to balance the budget for FY20 was to eliminate some chronically vacant positions. And so this lists are positions that, for the most part, have been vacant for the entire year. And so this reduction should have little impact as well to our level of service. There are some additions to positions, but that is in our enterprise fund. And so in water and sewer, there was a state mandate to implement a cross-connections control program. And so they are in need to add a utility supervisor and a senior engineering tech position. to manage the program. When we take out the enterprise fund and some of the other funds and just look at the general fund, the two pie charts look a little different than what we saw when we looked at all funds. On the left-hand side, you see the expenditures by type, and so in general fund, it's mainly personnel and services are big drivers. On the revenue side for general fund, our major revenue source is property taxes, then followed by sales tax. As I mentioned earlier, the operations budget was budgeted without a tax increase, and so the 4-cent tax increase is budgeted strictly to go towards our debt service fund. And so you can see how our debt model goes up and then drops off. And so this graph includes a multi-year outlook for the debt service fund, and that it includes recently approved debt issuances and projected debt for the future. With the 4-cent tax increase, will have an impact on people's tax bill. And so this is a chart that shows home values, your current bill, what your new bill will be, and the difference. The average home value in Winston-Salem is a little bit under $150,000. And so your current bill should be $996. The new bill will be $956 for the year. And so that's a difference of $60 for the whole year. Moving into our capital plan. The capital plan is a 6-year planning document. For the current year, FY20, we're budgeting $87 million. Mainly, as you see in both the 6-year plan and the current year plan, environmental health is our largest focus area for the capital plan. The 6-year plan is $355 million, and it's broken down by strategic focus area. So for the current year the capital plan, $87 million. A major portion of the proposed capital budget is for investments in water and sewer infrastructure, and that's where you saw the healthy environment as the biggest piece of the pie. The plan also includes the April 2019 appropriation of 2/3 bonds to fund the Novak Street Bridge replacement, the Meadow Lark Drive road widening, and recreation maintenance projects. So all of that is included in our FY20 capital plan. When we go to looking at our 6-year plan, environmental health, once again, is our major driver there. It represents 67% of the capital plan budget. Appropriation of $21.7 million over 6 years and 2/3 general obligation bonds will be for major maintenance of recreation and fire facilities, street resurfacing, and bridge repairs. In terms of citizen engagement, which I know is really important, and our CBAC had some recommendations last year as well, but we want people to really engage in our proposed budget. We're going to place all of our budget documents at the recreation centers within the city and public libraries within the city limits so that people can review the document and weigh in. We'll distribute over 500 one-page budget highlight flyers that just does a high-level overview of the budget, and it will talk a little bit about our bond projects on the back. We'll mail over 70 postcards to neighborhood associations and community groups so that they will be aware of our budget process and how to weigh in. We'll post several news articles about the proposed budget on our website, and we plan to engage citizens about the budget on our social media. So the public hearing on the budget the first meeting is Thursday, May 30th at 7 p.m. at the City Council chamber.
That's a week from today.
It's a week from today.
At 7 o'clock.
Yes. So once we distribute the proposed document, which council has at their desk and which will be in the recreation centers and the library, the document is divided by strategic focus area. And so if people have questions about where a department lies, this particular chart shows you where each department is. So under economic vitality and diversity, there's a tab for that. You'll find the Business Inclusion and Advancement Department, the Winston-Salem Business Improvement District, off-street parking, public assembly facilities, and the downtown ballpark. Under Safe and Secure Community, you'll find the Police, Fire, and Emergency Management Departments. Under Livable Neighborhoods, you'll find the Planning and Development Services Department, Community Development, Human Relations, and the Recreation and Parks Department. Under Environmental Health is Sanitation, Solid Waste Disposal, Water and Sewer System, and Stormwater Management. Under Quality Transportation, you'll find the Department of Transportation, Traffic Field Operations, Winston-Salem Transit Authority. And then under General Government are mainly our internal services departments. There's a table of contents that has a very similar breakdown by strategic focus area so that people can find the department that they are looking for. This is our budget review calendar. And so our next meeting is May 30th, a week from today. As the Chairman Clark just mentioned, the Finance Committee Budget Workshop will start at 5 o'clock, where we will review questions from council at the beginning of the meeting and then go into reviewing our community agencies. At 7 o'clock, we'll have a public hearing. That'll be in the City Council chamber. Then on June the 6th at 4, we'll have another Finance Committee Budget Workshop. And then on June the 17th, which is a Monday at 7 o'clock, the regular council meeting is where we'll have our second public hearing and a budget adoption.
So please note, next week, there's 2 meetings on Thursdays, 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay,
Is that it?
that's it.
Any questions? Ms. Scipio, you had your hand up first. Go right ahead.
I had 2 questions. The easiest one, the community engagement timetable and all the things you're going to be sending out, the postcards and that.
Yes.
Is that going out immediately, and it's really so that people can respond by next week, next Thursday,
Yes,
and or June
or June 17th.
17th?
Right.
Okay, and I thought that was an easy one.
Yeah, we'll try to have the budget documents out by tomorrow and start mailing the postcards and the one-pagers out hopefully by Tuesday, just so people will have some information.
Now, the chart on the debt service, where it was a lovely little U,
Mm-hmm.
I just had a question on that.
Here we go.
That one. And that's from 2018. So we're seeing our debt service reducing, if I'm reading that right?
That's the balance.
The balance.
Reserves.
Okay.
That's the money in the checking account.
Yeah.
So it goes almost to zero, then it comes back.
What's driving that going down and coming up?
Paying the bonds
Paying them
off.
off.
So we pay them off, so we have
Then we go
less
get some more.
in the dip.
Yeah.
So are we anticipating, what this is showing, adding more after 2025?
Yeah.
We start moving up with more bonds? Okay.
Well,
We
who knows
could-
what will happen.
Yeah, we
That
could
far out.
decide 2022 that we want to do this again.
Right.
I'm more concerned with getting through 2023 to 2026,
Yep.
to the low point. We don't want to hit the black line. But just as you can imagine, you issue $120 million worth of bonds. As you pay them off, your interest amount goes down.
Down.
Your principal's usually pretty heavy there, and at some point, you get to build your reserves back up. Ms. Tony, does that make sense?
That makes sense, yes.
I had,
Wait, you have any more questions?
That was it.
Okay, Ms. Bird, you next.
yes, I want to ask about the survey, the city. Where would you get that survey as a citizen?
The
Citizen survey.
Right. It should be available at www.cityofws.org. There's a link on the Office of Performance and Accountability's site, and so people can go there for information about.
The reason I asked that question, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair, is because I was having a community meeting this week, and so one of the residents brought in the survey. The others, most of them didn't know a thing about it. Why? Because they don't have computers. Then, when I asked, one lady told me she goes to Mays at Woodruff to use the computer and 14th Street School to use the computer. Now, the residents who are near the Russell Community Center, to me, look like they need to be able to come in and use a computer, because if we're talking about technology, and the citizens who are your oldest citizens have been carrying this community all these years, and we're not providing for some of them the opportunity to even see it. So I feel, Mr. City Manager, we can do a better job in doing that. Also, the user fee. How would I know as a citizen that I can use the facility without first time or second time paying? If I have anything to...
User fees at the community centers.
No, I'm through with the community center. I've gone to another one. I hope that they can hear when I said, Mr. City Manager, about doing the technology if we're going to do with the centers. Now, my next comment concerns user fees.
Okay.
How would a citizen know that they have to pay first go round or not pay for the use of a user fee out at the landfill?
The landfill tipping fees will not increase, but the water and sewer.
I'm not speaking about that.
Okay.
I'm saying if a citizen cleans out their yard or their
The
house,
yard cart
and
fee.
they can, no,
I'm sorry.
and they can take it out to the landfill
Mm-hmm.
over there on Haynes.
Haynes Mill.
How would you know if you had to pay or not pay? What do we give to make them aware of that on some of your first go-rounds? You don't even have to pay. But how many citizens know that? They'll give you a pass.
Yeah, how do they get the free vouchers? Can someone
Yeah.
comment on that?
Courtney, one. I'm gonna let her in.
You're back there, come on up. Question has to do with how do you get the free vouchers?
The free passes for city residents. Yes, they can call CityLink and request those free passes that way.
You know what I said to the city manager the other day? The way in which we process communicating with people, we need to do a better job. If we would only communicate in a way that people can understand, not what you all understand, and also to be well informed yourselves on how to communicate with our taxpayers. You know why people are glad that I'm sitting here as an elderly person? Because I look out for them. And I think that how we ought to be more communicative, if that's the word,
That's it.
and with people
At a level that
they can understand. I was talking to a man, a businessman today, and I said to him, I repeat things 3 times, and I know I'm repeating them 3, to make sure when I'm communicating that people understand me clearly. I said, what we do, we fail to give answers, I'm speaking to the city manager now, answers where the citizen who's very intelligent, who's been your taxpayers all these years, we from City Hall, we are not speaking to them because some of your staff talk so much and they don't give a chance to breathe. They just, so don't you think taxpayers need that kind of consideration? Just like the simple question, as you call them, the passes or the vouchers. We give that, most of them are not knowing about it, and our CBAC is doing a good job in trying to help us to be more available and visible and communicating with our citizens. So these are simple questions, but we need to answer them so they can be understood. Thank you.
Mr. Driver, hang around a minute.
Okay.
Mr. McIntosh.
Again, the CBAC gave us recommendations as to what we need to do to ensure the citizens are engaged. But members of the council, we have been discussing this for a decade since I've been on this council. And in our strategic planning, we spent a significant amount of time talking about us making sure that our folks are part of the process. Just because we communicate the budget, just because we know that there are vouchers and staff knows, to the Mayor Pro Tem's credit, she is absolutely right.
People don't know.
And Mr. Garrity, because we've gotten their recommendations, because we did the strategic planning, I personally thought we were going to implement, because we talked about all of this back when we did the retreat. I thought we were going to have all of that a part of this. The world we live in is a different place now. People expect their city elected officials, staff, to be in constant communication with them at a level that they understand it. The recommendation we got from CBAC of making sure following one of our peer cities, heck, we should have been doing that a long time ago. All I'm saying right now, and I'm sure the Mayor Pro Tem and the rest of the council, we have a short time, but now we got to close the gap. And we got a week to do it. Because I got a feeling this budget, you're going to get a little bit more engagement than we normally get on these budgets. And I think we need to put our best foot forward to make sure that we have educated as best we can, going beyond, ensuring that even when we send out the little pamphlet, don't make the lettering so small. Don't make it so city government language. Just give me an example of what the money goes for, and give me an example of how it affects me and my family every day. Because if it doesn't, if you can't explain to me how much my tax is going up, okay, why is it going up? Well, you voted on the budget. In 2018, your property taxes are going up because of the bonds, not what we do. And people need to understand that. But I think, again, council, we have an opportunity here that if we do our jobs, and again, it goes back to we need to be better at what we're doing, this communication, marketing, branding piece. Personally speaking, again, I don't have anything against the people in that department and what they do, but I just feel like we are short, and we might need to go get somebody, some citizens, small businesses that do this, and they do it very well, because we can be better than this. We can be better than this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McIntosh.
While we're talking about communications, I know one of the largest areas of engagement that we have during this whole process is with community agencies. Can you just review when is the best time for folks who are on a board or working at a 501c3 that ask us for money? What's the engagement process and the timetable there?
Well, community nonprofits can apply for city grants. Typically, we kick off in November of the fiscal year. The CAC then reviews applications and then makes recommendations for the city manager to review. The ones that have applied for this current fiscal year they'll be notified tomorrow what's in the proposed budget. They would also be invited to attend the public hearing on Thursday, May 30th at 7 o'clock to be able to either thank the council for previous funding or make appeals for funding for the current year.
Thanks. And I've got one question for City Manager. How many of our critical jobs, and I'm thinking mostly right now about engineering, but I think there are others, but how many of those jobs are vacant? What are we faced with in terms of shortages, being able to fill them?
Councilor McIntosh, we're probably looking at somewhere close to 100 positions, and there are only a few engineers, but they're very critical. But we have a lot of vacant positions in the construction area because of the economy we're in. We're getting ready to hold another large job fair to try to recruit with the new wages that we just put in, the new salaries, to try to recruit more people. But we are significantly short staff.
But this budget includes enough funding so that if we can find those people, we can hire them.
Yes. This budget includes funding for all those positions.
And I'm assuming we're not figuring out we're going to pay all 100 of them for 12 months. We're going to figure that they'll phase in over some period of time.
Well, that would be a good problem, actually, to have them
But
here,
an unrealistic
honestly.
one, right? Yeah.
Because there is a lot of work to be done, a lot of, just in the streets and sidewalks area. We are very far behind.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bessie?
Yes, thanks. I had a couple of just hopefully clarifying or confirming questions about the projected debt service fund balance. As I understand it, and tell me please if I'm mistaken, the line, the graph shown for that, assumes the issuance of all the bonds we have approved thus far.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ms.
okay.
Saunders, you want to come up, please? Why don't you tell us what assumptions are in this
Okay.
graph?
Good evening. So the assumptions in the graph are all of the bonds that have been approved to date. And I've made some assumptions, for example, on the $122 million, the spending. I've assumed that half of it will be spent June, well, not spent, but we'll borrow June of 2020 for $60 million of the 122, and then in a couple years we'll do the other. And so everything that council has approved on the capital side is included in this plan, in addition to probably 4 more years of 2/3 bonds out in the future. It doesn't include any future bond referendums that we might think in the future or anything like that. Just as a review, the revenues in this fund are a portion of the property tax, a portion of the sales tax, and investment income. So I've made some very conservative assumptions on growth in property tax, growth in sales tax, as well as conservative assumptions on the debt side. This is projecting out debt payments. General governmental debt payments are generally over 20 years. So I've projected, conservative interest rates, 4%, 5% in the future. As an example, we issued debt the last time at an average cost of 2.5%. So I've been really conservative. Spend plans make a big difference in how the schedule works out. I've assumed that we'll issue the last amount of the 2014 bonds next year. It always slows at the end, so that might be conservative as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Bessie.
Regarding the property tax base assumptions, what annual average growth rate have you assumed?
1%.
1%, that is pretty conservative. And I assume that in terms of the revenues to the fund, you're looking at a continuation of the recommended debt service of 11.3 cents on the property tax rate?
I don't have that number on the top of my head, but it's whatever the current debt service property tax rate is plus 4 cents.
Okay.
Whatever that allocation is, I'm not sure. But yes, it's the current plus the 4 cents.
Sure,
Is
it
that
appears
right?
on
Yeah.
page 9 of
Right,
as
right.
11.3 cents. I'm just
Correct.
all right, thank you. I had some other questions, but they're about the additional information
That's fine.
provided, so I can wait on that to appropriate.
I do have a few quick questions. Let me just start with you, Ms. Saunders.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to show the opposite graph to this, maybe a graph that shows how much you're actually spending. This is how much you have left in your checking account.
Right.
Sure.
Let's show what
How
we're
much is
spending, and
spent.
that would be a combination of interest expense each year and in the actual projects.
Right.
And I think what you'll see there, it'll start off pretty heavy. We'll spend most of that money in the next 3 years. Some of it will be a little bit later, and the interest will peak quickly, and then we'll start to go down. Secondly, I'm assuming the revenue bonds are not in this.
No, this is only the general governmental debt.
Only general
Proprietary funds have their own debt assumptions, their own projections that are outside of this.
Are they in the book somewhere?
Yes, they are. The debt service projection, for example, for water and sewer is in the book there. And just FYI, we don't plan on issuing any water and sewer revenue bonds until about 2021.
Yeah.
It's
Let me
out.
just point it to everybody, and this is really more Mr. Bessie's department. But Ms. Driver, who's sitting somewhere back there, I can't ever see who's sitting back there. We do issue other bonds called revenue bonds that pay for the water and sewer and things of that sort. And they have their own standalone budget. And in theory, not in theory, in practice, the monthly fees you pay for your water and sewer pay for everything, including the bond interest and capital projects and all that. And I look forward to reviewing those as well. The other questions I had for Ms. Driver while you're up, what is the water and sewer base charge first?
What is
Going
it?
up- Yeah, that was going up $1.06
Yes.
or something.
So what we call that our readiness to serve charge, and it's part of industry standard. It's just being able to provide water or sewer service regardless of whether you use it or not. So, we have to send meter readers out to read your meter, things of that nature, regardless of how much volume of water you use.
It's the minimum you have to pay.
It's the minimum, right.
Okay. Second one, you're adding 2 positions because of the Cross Connections Control Program?
Yes.
Can you please tell me what that is?
Yes, so cross connection is basically the public water supply, the point of the public water supply and the private supply. So any kind of back siphonage that can happen if we have a leak or something, any kind of cross contamination that could happen. Basically, you have backflow prevention devices to prevent that those contaminations coming back into the public potable water system. And that's the Cross Connection Control Program is a program that's been mandated by the state for us to monitor those connections.
So if the pipe, which from my meter to my house, got a break in it and some dirt got in it, you don't want that getting into the clean water pipe at the street?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Yes, Ms. Sepia, please.
I loved your presentation. It was pointed what the key things we should consider. I think that's what our residents should get. If they get this book, it's going to be difficult for them to put things together. For instance, that particular graph is way back on page 180. And so I don't know how many people will go through this and figure that out as something that would be important for them to know. So I would hope that we could send residents a summary for them to look at so they can respond to us by next Thursday.
We're going to...
Or by June. I just think, how we present stuff, it goes back to communication.
Yeah.
What do we really want residents to do? Do we really want their input or not? If this is all they get to see at the rec center, there's not going to be much feedback on that. But if it's something like a summary that goes that people can see, oh, this is important for me to look at this way, that way. So I think I would recommend us doing that. And I believe that it would be okay for me to take what we got and send it to my residents by email so that they can look at it.
And let me say for everybody here, we literally just got these books.
Yeah, I know today.
40 minutes ago. Please look through them in detail, and I would suggest you go ahead, don't wait for the next meeting, go ahead and contact Ms. Tony or whoever with your questions. What we tend to do is we start another book, so to speak, with questions and answers, and they keep adding to it as it goes through. And because there is a huge amount of data in here,
yes,
and I wouldn't expect anyone to have digested it yet. And we all have our particular areas of interest, but please communicate those back to staff. And then as we meet, we'll go over various parts of the book, and whatever questions come up there, we will also get answers as well. Ms. Burke?
Yeah, this question concerns people living in neighborhoods whose pipes are not large enough for the overflow of the water. Do we have that in the budget in the areas that we're starting to make improvements? For instance, over there in the countryside, where the pipes are not able to carry because of the increase in people moving in. We probably have that in quite a few of our neighborhoods. And I want to know, what are we doing for the citywide in addressing those needs?
So on the water and the sewer side, we have master plans where we're continuously monitoring the system. We have models. And so we're projecting growth, and we determine what projects we need, whether we need to upsize pipes in certain areas to be able to accommodate that growth.
If you would, then the pipes that we need to upgrade, the sections, would you share with us?
Yes.
Because we have some citizens been asking for some relief ever since their basements are being flooded, where they have their furniture and where some of them live. And I don't have, when we start on any, to complete some of those areas.
Okay.
Thank you. Good question. Mr. Bessie?
Yes. Is this the time to begin to follow up on information that is contained in the initial round of questions and answers?
Yeah, I would say we got plenty of time, please. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it.
Yes, it's on page 3 of the responses.
Are they on the,
They're in the book. They're in your, they're numbered. They're in the, on the agenda.
hang on a minute. Everybody go to your, close it out. And it's G3 from the general agenda,
Okay.
response questions.
Where's that? I don't get on this thing.
Give everybody 1 second. Dan, to get there. What we have here, if everybody on page 1 of 7, these are already some questions staff has gotten, and Mr. Bessie's going to ask some questions on these. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is the question at the bottom of page 3 in that item. First question under service excellence. What are the proposed merit increases for FY 2019-20 for other North Carolina jurisdictions? And you've got information on 4. Greensboro, High Point, and Charlotte proposing a 3% average merit increase for all employees. Durham's proposing a 4% increase for general employees and a 5% increase for police and fire. So that I can be sure that we're getting apples to apples, did any of those jurisdictions include in their budgets this calendar year either a market pay adjustment calculated separately or a dedicated additional increase for police and fire?
Well, at the time that I did the research and talked to the other jurisdictions, they had not presented their proposed budget yet. So this information was prior to this week where a lot of the proposed budgets are out. What we'll do is follow up with each of them and actually specifically inquire about police and fire supplemental pay, any specific merit increases, so that we can look at it side by side, and we'll bring that to the next.
And you know, other sort of market studies.
And market studies, right.
If those were included, I need to take those into account in evaluating whether I want to make any proposed changes to the budget addressing the merit pay increases.
Okay.
And I have some specific additional data requests, but rather than take the body's time, I can just submit those to you.
Okay. And also, while you're asking those questions, find out if any of them have a minimum wage, a city minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like they do.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Dan, you just communicate those
Yes,
separately.
thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Just a comment, just call attention to the citizens that staff has pointed out that we've lost about $6.7 million of revenue from the state in recent years. Penny generates how much on the tax rate?
About $2 million.
About $2 million. So, you know, 3 cents on our tax rate is because we've lost revenue because of actions taken by the state.
And more is coming.
Could be.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Folks, we got a lot of reading to do. Good thing we got a long weekend coming.
Do your homework.
Do you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to comment on Councilmember Scipio's statement. It's correct. The marketing department is developing a one-page flyer that will go in concert with the budget document. We realize it's a lot for people to look through, but we want to be totally transparent, so we give the whole book. But they will have a one, it'll be front and back, and it'll look like this, that gives really high-level highlights of the budget that they can digest.
So it's a one-pager of your presentation.
It's a one-pager, has the budget highlights, it shows revenue sources, and it's really a simplified version of the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks. Thank all the staff for being here today. And as I said, it's a good thing we got a long holiday weekend, so we all get some reading done. If no other further questions, we will stand adjourned. Thank you.